scrub, and he was played by Will Poulter. I'm not planning on doing videos for Voyage of the Dawn Treader, but how can I possibly ignore this? It's obviously one of the biggest announcements in the entire series. Will Poulter as Eustace. Eustace is one of my favorite human characters in the entire series, and gosh, I just can't take this. It's like I'm still kind of in Prince Caspian mode, obviously. Still kind of getting over the shock of Prince Caspian. Now here's a major Voyage of the Dawn Treader announcement, so I'm kind of slowly shifting into Dawn Treader mode a little earlier than I would have liked. But just looking at the picture, my first reaction was, hey, that does. I can kind of see something of Eustace in him. I mean, obviously you have to wait to see the performance before you really judge if you like an actor. But all we can go on is looks right now, and I think he looks great. I like his eyes right here. I can really see something of how I imagine Eustace there. The hair now, I like the idea of him having blonde hair and kind of being different from the Pevensies, just kind of for a change. But the only reason I don't like the blonde hair, and it's selfish and it's kind of a stupid reason, and I won't get hung up on it. The only reason is that it reminds me of Eustace and BBC, and anything that reminds me of BBC, I'm against in these films, and so that's really the only reason. But I think he looks like he's going to be a phenomenal choice, and obviously I'm always try to be optimistic about casting choices because all the other actors in the other movies have been so great. But obviously there is a problem of his age. I mean, it's fine now. Eustace is like 9 in Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and he's going to be 14. That is a little older, but nothing worth panicking over. But if assuming they continue to do the movies in publication order, that would put Last Battle in about 2018, which would make him about 24. That would make Eustace, the actor, about 24. Now, obviously, Ben Barnes is 25, and in my opinion, they did manage to make him look, 18, 19, 20. So they might be able to make him look, young enough. And so that is a potential problem, but right now I will say that Voyage of the Dawn Treader, I'm excited. I think he's going to be great. And especially watching that clip, Son of Rambo, I can definitely see something of Eustace in there. And once again, always try to stay optimistic about casting choices because they've done such a great job with casting on the other films. I was kind of upset about Ben Barnes being cast initially, but at the time, I in my defense, I did say, hey, trying to be optimistic because the wardrobe actors were so great, and that's ultimately what happened. But so yeah, overall, I gotta say, I think that he's gonna be, Eustace is my favorite human character in the series, I think, and I think that Will Poulter is gonna do a great job with it. I thought this video would be a good opportunity to kind of talk about what I thought about the actors in the Prince Caspian film, and. So let's start with Ben Barnes here. And this is the reason I'm optimistic about casting choices, is that I think they did a great job with just about everybody. Ben Barnes is Caspian. I was really upset when he was first cast because he was so darn old, and obviously he has to be about the same age as William Moseley, but I was still like, oh my gosh, 25. But I think it turned out well. Like I've said this so many times before, but for 2 hours, I could accept that he was Caspian. He doesn't look anything like how I imagine Caspian, but I don't know, there's just something about him where I can accept that he's Caspian. And so nothing about Ben Barnes' performance blew me away, but overall he got the job done, and I think he was a fine choice for Caspian. For a film called Prince Caspian, he didn't really have a lot of screen time, which was kind of interesting. But yeah, thumbs up to Ben Barnes' Caspian. It's not one of those things where I think that probably... Georgie Henley, who no one else could have played Lucy, period. Ben Barnes, probably someone else could have, but, Ben Barnes did a fine job with it. My favorite new actor, my favorite new cast member was probably Sergio Castellitto as MIRAZ. And, very consistent with how what we know about MIRAZ from the book. And one thing I want to say about him is he did a really good job with lying on screen. Like the scene in particular where he has to force Glazelle to lie, so, General Glazelle, how many men were killed, such a good job of, that he has such a good job of saying one thing but communicating another. He's saying, how many men were killed, but what's happening. He's putting pressure on Glazelle to lie, and he just, it must be a hard thing, I think, for an actor to do that, but where he says one thing but he's communicating something totally different, and so that's one thing I really liked about him. And that's such a foundational part of Miraz's character, is him lying and manipulating people. So I really was totally liked Sergio Castellitto's MIRAZ. I think he's probably my favorite new actor in the film. The one guy who was really under the radar and surprised me was Pierfrancesco Favino as Glazelle. And I guess he just surprised me because he was so under the radar. We didn't know how big of a role he was going to have, but I thought Glazelle had a really cool character arc of ultimately kind of turning on MIRAZ, and thought he Pierfrancesco Favino made him a really kind of a memorable and sympathetic character. And I was really kind of rooting for him. I said, come on, do the right thing. I was kind of rooting for him. And so that was a surprise. Peter Dinklage's Trumpkin. I mean, he did. I think he made a memorable character, and he has a lot of memorable parts in the movie, and a lot of people like him, and I liked Peter Dinklage. It just, it wasn't how I imagined Trumpkin in the book. And I mean, there were certain elements of it, like obviously Trumpkin is a big skeptic and everything. But I wasn't quite, like with Ben Barnes, I was able to say, okay, it's not quite how I imagined it, but I can just accept that he's Caspian. Wasn't quite able to do that with Trumpkin, and that is forgivable because he was a good character in the movie, and it's still kind of consistent with the guidelines that Lewis set, just not it wasn't funny enough, and he was funny in different ways, and it just wasn't. So he was good, and I like Peter Dinklage, just wasn't how I imagined Trumpkin in the book. I like Warwick Davis as NIKABRIK, and Warwick Davis, I kind of made the joke, and when he was cast, oh my gosh, this is the most predictable casting announcement ever. Warwick Davis as another dwarf. But I thought, it was kind of distracting to me at times, so I recognized what Warwick Davis he was. But I thought he did a fine job with NIKABRIK and, kind of making him the sour black dwarf and everything. I really like Vincent Grass as Dr. Cornelius. Anytime he was on screen, he threw that old wizard thing, and I thought he did a great job with it. And obviously, I've already said that REEPICHEEP, Eddie Izzard was, no one else could have played REEPICHEEP, but I have a whole video on that. Trufflehunter, Ken Stott, that's another guy I hadn't given much thought to, but look what you made me do. He had a lot of lines that I just thought he did a really good job on. Not how I imagined Trufflehunter in the book, but I think at least as far as the voice, the character was just like Trufflehunter. But the voice, not quite how I imagined Trufflehunter, but I thought it was, I really enjoyed hearing Ken Stott as Trufflehunter. Thought he did a good job with it. The Pevensies, Georgie Henley, no one else could ever play Lucy. Period. Like anytime you point, she does have a couple cheesy parts in this, but point the camera at Georgie and something interesting will happen every time. She's just so dependable in that way, and I didn't expect to like her as much in this one because the Harry Potter actors, I liked him in the first film. Then in the second film, they weren't as cute anymore, and so they kind of had to actually act, and we found out they weren't actually that good. So I kind of wondered if the same thing would happen here, but I think Georgie is she's just so dependable, and she has such great screen presence, and is exactly, in just about every way, exactly how I imagine Lucy in the book. And I would say she's my favorite actor out of the first two films so far. Just phenomenal. And then Skandar Keynes is the one that I think he probably has the most potential to go on and have a great career. Like Georgie, she's just meant to play Lucy. But Skandar, I can see him going on and actually having a good career. He seems like a very talented actor. Anna Popplewell, she's fine, but she kind of does the expected for the most part. She doesn't, I like Skandar because there's surprises in the way he delivers lines, and it makes sense at the same time, and it just kind of does pretty much what you'd expect. She's still fine as Susan, but just not the best actor in the movie. William Moseley, if you read some of the lines that Peter delivers, I feel like Moseley, he made Peter seem like more of a jerk than he needed to be, and I would tend to blame that on Andrew Adamson for directing him that way. I think that Moseley did a fine job with what he was given, but in the end, I don't like how Moseley was directed there. The voice of ASLAN, I'll save him for last. The voice of ASLAN, I liked a lot better in this one. Like when he says, of course. You see, he has just a little more of a growl in there. I don't know, was that post-production or did Liam Neeson somehow do that? It was like, Lucy asks, will you help? And he goes, of course. There's this growl, a slight growl to his voice. And I really liked it a lot better this time. Rise, kings and queens of Narnia. I really liked Aslan's voice a lot better in this one. So yeah, once again, this is the reason why I'm gonna remain optimistic about casting choices. Like as soon as I saw, I wasn't even really worried about Eustace. I just said that maybe might be some problems, but overall they got it. See, this is how I work. I don't think of myself as a pessimistic person when it comes to these. I just think optimism is something that needs to be earned. And this is an area of the film where there's no doubt about it. They have absolutely earned my optimism. I don't know who's going to play Popplewell, but it'll probably be awesome. That's how confident I am in their casting. And so the countdown is on for Dawn Treader. I'm still kind of in Prince Caspian mode, but slowly shifting into Dawn Treader mode. And I got our first big news on Dawn Treader, and so far it's good news.